ladies in the corner, can I say that? This one? What do you mean the second one? Sorry? Oh, hello. Could I ask everyone to take their seats? We will start in a moment. Thank you. Okay. Slight problem with the microphones. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ute Collier. I'm the Deputy Director of the Knowledge Policy and Finance Division here at IRENA. And I would like to welcome you all to this first session on the pre-assembly day. So we'll be discussing SDG 7 on sustainable energy, the road ahead. We are going to start with some opening remarks now from our Deputy Director General, Corey C.
Thank you, Ute, and good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and friends. It's a pleasure to be here for the first session, kicking off the 3-day discussions, which the 15th Assembly will have. And I'm really very happy that with the kind of emphasis that IRENA puts on SDG 7, we're actually kick-starting our discussions from this session here today. And we really feel that SDG 7 is pretty much our guiding light, because a lot of the work that we do and the sessions that you will see and the discussions that you will hear at the assembly, you will be able to relate the common thread that runs through all of the sessions. We do understand that while sustainable energy may not be the panacea for all that impacts us on climate change, but it still is a critical enabler for sustainable development. And especially in the world that we see today, where the global effort on poverty reduction is coming to almost a standstill, we are also seeing the rising inequalities and inequity that are happening, but also the impact of climate change is very much visible to all of us. It's important that we continue and we maintain our work on SDG 7 as we move forward. So, after the adoption of SDG 7 in 2015, we've made a lot of progress as a global community. And we have an annual tracking report compiled by IRENA along with its other co-custodians, the IEA, the UNSD, the World Bank, and the WHO, which actually shows that a lot still remains to be done. And the most concerning analytical piece that comes out, the analytical data that comes out from here, shows that for the first time, we find that there have been reverses on basic energy access for the first time in this decade. So, and that, of course, is a cause for concern for all of us. With 685 million people living without electricity access in 2022 and 2.1 billion still relying on polluting fuels for cooking is something that continues to concern everyone. There have been some promising signs, and this also includes the COP28 pledge for tripling renewable energy and doubling energy efficiency, and also the greater multi-stakeholder effort that came together for closing the energy access gap, providing clean cooking solutions, and supporting lives and livelihood. With just about 5 years left till 2030, it's critical that the strong collaboration that has been put together under SDG 7 continues strongly, and it focuses on the long-term energy planning and policies that need to be embedded in the national strategies of countries. While moving ahead, we also need to make sure that adequate financing and country support would be key for us to take those steps, and keeping in mind the needs, especially of the least developing countries and the marginalized communities who can benefit from these opportunities is very important for us to keep in mind. So in an ever-evolving world, with especially in the energy landscape, raising our collective ambition and setting out a pathway for achieving them, for shaping systems, is going to remain critical. And it's my hope that at this assembly this year, which brings together about 1,400 participants from across the globe, with international institutions, financiers, private sector, and civil society, we hope that it will again provide a very valuable platform for discussions and for exchange, for identifying priorities, and for areas of continued and deepening our cooperation. So throughout the coming days, we will delve into the various aspects of energy transition directly related and relevant to realizing SDG 7. I think, this being the first in this year, the IRENA Assembly, we also look forward to the many other milestone events, including the World Bank spring meetings, the annual HLPF, and the COP30 in Brazil, to ensure that these discussions and actions can be followed through. Let me conclude by saying I'm really delighted to see early in the morning so many friends and partners around in the table representing members of UN Energy, the SDG 7 Technical Advisory Group, and delegates from different countries. I just want to assure you that at IRENA, we remain committed to this objective, and I look forward to hearing the discussions and the outcomes that will follow. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gauri. It's now my pleasure to hand over to Hans Olav Ibrecht, who's the Special Envoy for Climate and Security, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Norway, and also the co-facilitator of the SDG 7 Technical Advisory Group, to provide some welcome remarks.
Thank you. Good morning to all. I'm speaking to you as on behalf of the SDG 7 TAG co-facilitators, myself and Sheila. I'm quite sure that Sheila will be arriving shortly, since she will also providing closing remarks. Let me also thank Gauri and the rest of the IRENA team for convening us here and for the remarks that Gauri just made, setting the stage for our discussion here today. It's quite clear that achieving SDG 7 it will be a key enabler to all the goals that the international community have committed to, be it the SDGs at large, the Paris Agreement, of course, the UAE consensus that we agreed to a little bit more than 1 year ago, and also our targets on biodiversity. The status is quite clear. I'm not going to go into the details here because you've all seen them, that we are not doing too well, to put it diplomatically and politely. In my words, I think we are not doing good at all. We need to really roll up our sleeves and get our act together, because in fact we are going in the wrong direction in some of these areas. Of course, the key question is whether we will be able to achieve SDG 7 and the other SDGs by 2030. And I think realistically, this is going to be a really hard sell. We need to continue to keep the political target, because I think in essence, SDGs are key political targets that we still need to rally around, even though it's rather unlikely that we will reach most of the goals that we have agreed to. We are now faced with headwinds basically blowing from all directions in terms of conflicts in the world. It's a record level of conflicts, be it in Europe as well as in the Middle East and in many parts of Africa. There is also big competition between key players, especially when it comes to technology, and I'm thinking in particular between the US and China. And this, of course, distorts the market as such. Climate change is speeding ahead. It was just reported from Copernicus, the EU's measuring system, the other day, that we've actually now gone beyond 1.5 degrees. And we see the impacts hitting us quite hard. A little bit less than 1 year ago, when we met here in Abu Dhabi for the Arena Assembly, it was really heavy, serious rains, and we could hardly make it to St. Regis, and they had to close some of the rooms here, indicating also that there are events happening that we could at least attribute to climate change. We also see now energy security front and center in the international discussions, indicating that energy now has become a real political issue, a geopolitical issue. The result of this is, of course, that we are all seeing a fragmented world. I don't think I've heard the word globalization in the last couple of years. That was basically in the early part of this decade. We all talked about globalization and some years ago, but no, I don't really hear about globalization anymore. No, it's fragmentation. We see an increasingly divided world. We see also populism on the rise all around the world. We are now also lacking broad-based public support to a large part of our agenda. And of course, this affects our ability to deliver. I'm representing a small country way up in the north, Norway. And of course, for us being a small country, we need multilateral system, and we need to make sure that the multilateral system works, because that's what we have set up in order to deliver, where we can all meet and we can all discuss and agree to take some steps forward. So not to be sort of too depressed here, but I think my conclusion is that we have a lot of work to do. We need to start working together more efficiently, and we need all hands on the deck in order to achieve this. UNDESA convened the SDG 7 Technical Advisory Group some years ago in 2017, and you can see the membership on the slide there. It's a wide group covering lots of institutions from the UN side. It's a multi-stakeholder group, so we also have civil society and representatives from member states. We have not really been able to bring private sector on board, so that's, I would say, probably our remaining task, and also to broaden a little bit in terms of the multi-stakeholder activities. But SDG7 TAG was set up to support UNDESA and support the high-level political forum's review of SDG7. So what has the SDG7 TAG done so far? We've published a number of policy briefs, and we've supported also the annual SDG7 tracking reports. And I would like to extend my thanks to the SDG7 custodians of the great work that they are doing. It's IRENA, IEA, WHO, UN Statistics, and the World Bank. And they've all come together and prepared a joint report, a joint status report. It took some work in order to get them to do this, but no, they are working quite efficiently together. And I'm really pleased to see that we have the only SDG where we have a one common report. And I think that's and also partly a testament to the work of the SDG7 TAG, I have to say. But again, thanks to the custodians, because this is critical that we know where we are and how we are doing. So what else has the TAG been doing? They've supported then the various reviews of SDG7 at the HLPF, and we have the next one coming up now in 2026. And we will then be preparing a new set of policy briefs going forward. And I think it is also important at this stage that we start discussing what's going to happen after 2030 and going beyond 2030, because it's quite clear that our development agenda needs to go forward after 2030. The job is definitely not done. And we as an energy community, we have an obligation or a duty to make sure that energy will also figure prominently in what we will be doing next. So that is something we need to increasingly start focus on so we can get the multilateral process working in that direction. The UN Second Committee or the General Assembly also approved an extension of the decade until the end of 2030. We also need, and we've had discussions inside the UN, whether we could look into the possibilities of establishing some kind of an intergovernmental platform, because many of us feel that we actually lack a platform where we can all come together and discuss energy issues, be it from the governments or from the various stakeholders' side. And I think that is needed. It's going to be difficult to get agreement within the among member states to establish something along those lines, but we need to come together to discuss how we can bring this issue forward. So basically, just to conclude from my side, I would like to thank the colleagues that have showed up early in the morning here, and I'm looking forward to our discussions and to your contributions. We still have a lot of work ahead for all of us. I think the key words for me going forward would be to establish the necessary partnerships and to work together in order to deliver on the tasks that we have at hand. And the SDG7 TAG will certainly try to help your and guide your efforts as best as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans Rona, and thanks for reminding us of some of the challenges we're still facing. I'd like to now invite Mr. Riyad Medeb, who's Director of the Sustainable Energy Hub at UNDP, to provide his remarks.
Thank you very much, and good morning, dear colleagues and ladies and gentlemen. In the next 30 years, as the global population grows by 25%, energy demand will surge even faster, underscoring the urgent need for cleaner and more efficient solutions. Let me add one numbers after my friend Hans Rona. In the last analysis that we've done with our colleague from the World Bank and an analysis on geospatial data in the energy sector, 1.18 billion people are energy poor. Despite rising electricity access, lack of adequate, reliable, and affordable energy. This is the reality. It is more than just access, is energy. As we commence 2025, energy is no longer just a necessity, it's a catalyst for transformation, as we heard from high-level discussion at COP29, COP16, And the G20 in Brazil have opened new pathways to reshape global energy system with greater equity and cooperation. And the third review of SDG 7 at the HLPF in 2026 will provide an opportunity to generate momentum in support of energy action. But with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development entering its final stretch, the real question is, how do we ensure that targets lead to concrete actions? In 2025, solar energy is set to grow at the same rate as all annual energy increase for the first time. And we must act urgently now. COP29 highlighted the urgent need to close the financing gap with $300 billion annually climate finance goal by 2035 is still far from our target. And to meet SDG 7 targets by 2030, we need to provide electricity to 157 million people and clean cooking to 334 million people, and which will require between 3 billion to 4.5 trillion investment each year. However, over 90% of energy capital currently flow to advanced economies, leaving global south energy need largely unmet. And we must shift this investment pattern, not just to close the gap, but to drive growth, create jobs, and improve lives. And the opportunity is clear. But this will only happen if we rethink how we invest energy, prioritize equity, and act now to amplify impact on the ground. And I see three levels. The first one, we need to leverage innovative financing to eliminate market inefficiency and regulatory barriers and to unlock up to 40 trillion in saving by 2050, accelerating the sustainable energy transformation. It is not just about scale, but effectiveness. In 2022, Global North mobilized $116 billion, but with each dollar of public finance now attracting less than a quarter of private investment. It's a question of inefficiency. To unlock affordable, debt-smart financing, UNDP, with our colleague from the United Nations Capital Development Fund, we have put in place a system of guarantee schemes to reduce risk and to encourage transformation investment, which is a financial de-risking. In Paraguay, for example, through an electrical mobility project, we raised $115 million for clean transport through innovative public-private partnership, demonstrating how finance can drive both energy access and sustainability. Second point, after innovative finance, we must balance the cost and benefits of renewable energy era by developing pipeline of bankable projects in the global south. And energy investment in Africa have been limited by higher perceived risk and barrel costs. The cost of capital can be 2 to 3 times higher than in an advanced economy. And we need $30 billion in concessional finance annually through 2030 to achieve the necessary tripling of private sector investment. Initiatives like Mission 300, which aim to connect 300 million people in sub-Saharan Africa to electricity by 2030, and the Africa Mini Grid Program, which support early stage market in 21 countries with a $65 billion investment opportunity, are key to mobilize public, private, and development finance for creating opportunities to attract funds into renewable energy projects in an emerging market. The third point is looking forward to the triptych of digital, data, and AI. They can be very transformative on energy innovation, but balancing progress with resilient infrastructure and inclusive governance is crucial. We must fully leverage the opportunities that digitalization offers to accelerate the energy transition, optimize investment, enhance smart grid, and drive breakthrough in renewable energy across the entire value chain. For example, in Mauritius, UNDP is helping to develop smart grid that manage outage and optimize performance, ensuring both reliable and resilient energy access. With IBM, we were able to lead the Clean Energy Equity Index, which combined geospatial analytics, socioeconomic data to optimize priority for investment areas and ensure a more equitable and efficient energy transition. To close the finance gap, and achieve the 2030 goals, we must move beyond isolated projects and adopt an integrated system-wide strategies. This is what we are trying to do within the UN Energy. By February, countries must submit their UNDP, their updated NDCs, which will test whether their plan can translate into measurable progress. And as you may know, all NDCs in the world have energy components. COP30 set to take place in Belém, in Brazil, and G20 South Africa presidency will be critical for us to be able to to assess the progress on SDG 7 and bridge the gap between the commitment and concrete action as called by Ansela. A collaborative effort can transform the energy landscape, creating pathways to impact innovation and collaboration, making it central in the energy for development. Thank you.
Thank you, Riyad. We are now moving on over to a roundtable discussion. So let me hand over to Raul Alfaro Pelico, who's the Director of the Knowledge Policy and Finance Division at IRENA.
Thank you, Ute. Good morning, everyone. Distinguished delegates, excellencies. So we've already heard the framing, and really this session is about looking at the road ahead. And to kick us off, I'd like to invite our partner and colleague, Martin Niemetz from UNDESA, to set the frame for the discussion coming forward. Martin, you have the floor.
Hello, check. Thank you very much, Raul. It's a great pleasure. We've heard about what remains to be done about the urgent need to step up action if we want to achieve SDG 7 by 2030. If I could ask for my slides, thank you very much. So it's clear we need to get the world together to move things forward together. And in essence, this is what the SDG 7 process is really about. I will give you a quick overview of this process since it began. SDG 7, of course, was established in 2015. We then had the first review of SDG 7 in 2018, and then the high-level dialogue on energy in 2021, which was, of course, important given that it was the first global meeting on energy under the United Nations General Assembly in 40 years. And the dialogue resulted in the global roadmap for accelerated SDG 7 action, and also the energy compacts, which by this point have already raised $1.4 trillion in voluntary commitments towards SDG 7. So this was definitely an important milestone. In 2023, we had the second review of SDG 7 at the High-Level Political Forum and COP28. Now, of course, the entire COP process is really very important also in terms of SDG 7, given the strong connections between climate and energy. But I'm singling out COP28 in this process, given the UAE consensus and the commitments to tripling renewable energy capacity globally and doubling energy efficiency, which of course very much mirror SDG 7 in many ways. So this was an important milestone, I think, in the overall process. Now, last year we saw the global SDG 7 stock taking, and also the Summit of the Future, which sort of first made a first reference to the discussions that will determine the post-2030 agenda. And we also, as Hans Olaf already pointed out, a very important decision from the General Assembly to extend the decade of sustainable energy for all. Now, today in 2015, we find ourselves at the IRENA Assembly. And I just want to emphasize that the Assembly has been key over the years in the discussions on SDG 7. And we're hoping to even strengthen this role going forward. COP30, it's been mentioned, I think the whole world is putting a lot of hopes into COP30. And given the commitment by the Brazilian presidency to make this a success. So this is promising to be a huge milestone on the way. Now, looking forward a bit more, next year we will have the third review of SDG 7, and this might very well be the most important of all of the reviews of SDG 7, given that whatever we assess the status on SDG 7 will be at that point, and where the gaps are, that will of course have a huge impact on what we think will remain to be done in 2030 and what the actions and goals and targets at that point would have to be. So this will feed into the SDG summit taking place in 2027, where then formally the discussions on the post-2030 agenda will begin. And obviously we're all working toward 2030 SDG 7, and then we will see what the world decides to do after that in terms of the Sustainable Development Agenda. Now I want to just zoom in on a few upcoming opportunities for engagement. In September, we will be organizing in New York the SDG 7 Action Forum at the margins of the United Nations General Assembly. This is a superb platform for stakeholders to come together and discuss solutions, action on SDG 7, moving things forward. In the first half of 2026, we're planning to organize a high-level gathering to prepare for SDG 7 review, given the importance, as just mentioned, of this review of SDG 7, which will then take place in July 2026. So these will be points for engagement for all of us in the process. Finally, just to close my last slide, the International Day of Clean Energy is coming up. And on that occasion, DESA will organize, together with UN Energy and the co-chairs of the Group of Friends of Sustainable Energy, Denmark, Ethiopia, Norway, and Pakistan, a special event at the ECOSOC Chamber in New York on 23rd January. And this will also be live streamed on UN Web TV. So that's it from me. I hope I provided an overview of the SDG 7 process for you and the sort of next steps coming up in that process. And I look forward to very rich discussions and your interventions and comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Martin, on behalf of UNDESA for giving this very clear overview of not just the road ahead, but also the background. I'd like to start the first roundtable, but actually want to comment on what you just presented, Martin, because it's when you look at all the steps that are ahead, it looks like we have all that time to really achieve universal energy for all. We do not have that time. So one of the things that I really want to see coming out of this conversation today is, ideas on how we can fast track action today. So with that, I'd like to invite and introduce the first speaker for the roundtable, who is Mr. Isaac Kiba, who is Secretary for Renewable Energy of the Ministry of Energy in Kenya. Mr. Kiba, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, moderator, and excellencies, distinguished delegates. It is a pleasure for us from Kenya to join this esteemed panel to discuss a critical issue about accelerating progress towards SDG 7. In Kenya, our challenge is now to move the 25% who don't have electricity to have electricity, and 69% of the Kenyan households who rely on traditional biomass for cooking, a practice that contributes significantly to deforestation, health risks, and environmental degradation. The lack of access to electricity and modern cooking limits economic opportunities and social development, particularly in underserved regions. The high cost of energy, coupled with reliance on imported fuels, also poses substantial risk to our energy security and economic stability. So these challenges do underscore urgent need for policy reforms and intervention to accelerate the energy transition and expand access to modern energy services. We are fully committed to the SDG 3 goals, and we are doing a lot in renewable energy. Right now, 93% of our grid is renewable energy. We are also looking to grow this to have clean energy by 2030. We're doing a lot on doubling the rate of improvement in energy efficiency and also in achieving universal access to clean and modern energy. Our efforts are focused not only to expanding electricity access, but also to ensure that every Kenyan has access to clean cooking solutions, including promotion of electric cooking technologies. We are deploying off-grid solutions for electricity areas and multiple fuels for increasing access to clean energy. In line with the SDG 7, we are committed and we are implementing the energy transition in investment plan, which was launched in 2023, which is anchored on our overarching long-term low emission development strategy. The strategy outlines our vision for transitioning to a low carbon, climate resilient economy and includes clear investment in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and clean cooking. The energy transition investment plan will be instrumental in mobilizing the necessary capital to implement our ambitious energy transition goals, while also ensuring that economic, environmental, and social benefits are maximized for all Kenyans. We are currently also reviewing our national energy policy in line with the global trends. This is to align our energy systems with the long-term net zero aspirations, ensuring that the policy framework not only accelerates access, but also promote sustainable energy solutions. A key part of this transition is a national cooking transition strategy, which provides a roadmap for scaling up clean cooking solutions across the country. We have talked about financing, which is very crucial. And in this forum and the next days, we'll be looking at how to put action to the words we have been talking about, making sure that financing is available to developing countries, particularly Africa, so that we can be able to bridge the energy poverty gap. In conclusion, we look ahead. Kenya is committed in utilizing every opportunity to drive towards SDG 7. Our ongoing policy reforms, coupled with robust partnerships, innovative financing solutions, and strategic investment through the Energy Transition Investment Plan and LTS, will ensure that we not only meet the energy access needs of today, but also pave way for a sustainable energy future for all. Together, we can unlock the full potential of renewable energy to power the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akiba. And particularly, I really want to underscore Kenya's commitment to SDG 7 in the road ahead, as you have highlighted, particularly framed under the Energy Transition Investment Plan. Thank you. With that, I'd like to move on to our next speaker, who is Mr. Xiang Li, Division Director for European, North American, and Oceanian Affairs from the Department of International Cooperation at the National Energy Administration of China. Mr. Li, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. As a developing country with a huge population, China once faced a severe energy shortage. Recent years, we have been addressing the energy poverty, meet the increasing demand, safeguard energy security, and promote green transition simultaneously. So actually, at the beginning of this century, there are still about 40 million people without electricity in China. But for years of hard work, China achieved universal access for its 1.4 billion people in 2015. That's the year of SDGs and Paris Agreement was born. But after, I think the achievement of China's energy access is mainly attributed to the collaboration between the central and local government. That's our experience of China. They have formulated feasible energy plans in states and motivated the state-owned enterprises, clarify the specific projects, and use public funds to attract extensive investment. As mentioned, the colleagues that now achieve a basic energy service does not necessarily mean access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable modern energy. So there are still more than 1 billion people with energy poverty. My colleagues just mentioned earlier. So sustainable energy is, we see it's a foundation of sustainable development. So China commit to improve the energy service. Even we already have achieved the basic service, but we are committed to promote to improve the energy services continuously. So in order to ensure everyone in China has access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable modern energy, China relies on its own resources endowment to enhance energy supply capacity and to meet its energy demand and keep the cost stable and within a reasonable range. At the same time, devote great efforts than ever before to accelerating the green and low carbon energy transition. As we see, electricity is the core of the future energy system. So on the production side, China has built the world's largest clean power system with their yearly newly installed renewable capacity accounts for more than half of the global total. Now, renewables became the absolute mainstay of China's new power supply. And on the consumption side, China has deeply advanced the electrification in industries, buildings, transportation. Take the EV and charging infrastructure, for example. Currently in China, EV surpass fossil vehicles in terms of new car sales. And there are over 30 million charging piles supporting the low carbon travel of more than 24 million EVs. We are happy to see that the rapid development of China's clean energy has driven continuously industry upgrading and a significant reduction in cost. China provides the world with a large number of high quality and affordable clean energy technology and equipment, make it possible to deploy renewables in more territories on a large scale. However, we see the global efforts, just the gentleman just mentioned, the global efforts on SDG 7 still face reality like different national conditions, uneven resources, as well as challenges from financial shortage, technologies, and capacities. So that's calling for international cooperation and joint actions. China has rich experience and is willing to pursue the version of a community with a shared future for mankind, and is ready to strengthen coordination, policy planning to share solution and best practice for energy access and clean and low carbon transition. So China is willing to strengthen systematic cooperation with developing countries in the areas like clean energy deployment, grid interconnection, and electrification, and to jointly work towards to SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Xianli, and particularly for highlighting China's leadership and that focus on supply, but also the demand. Yeah, that is also part of the equation. With that, I'd like to move on to our next speaker, who is Mariana Vencis, Special Advisor at the Ministry of Energy in Brazil. Mrs. De Assis, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here talking on behalf of the Brazilian government, knowing that we have a huge responsibility ahead of us. And we would like to take this opportunity to highlight that SDG 7 and tackling energy poverty is at the core of a just and inclusive energy transition in Brazil's perspective. At the national level, as a developing country, Brazil knows that the pathway forward is only possible by designing sound and concrete policies. We have important actions being taken at the national level, such as the program Light for All, where since 2003 we have provided access to electricity to more than 17 billion of Brazilians, and we are now at the last miles and working hard to achieve universal access to electricity in Brazil by 2026. And right now we are designing a national policy for clean cooking, as we still have almost 7% of the Brazilian population without access to clean cooking. During our G20 presidency last year, we have kept access to energy, and tackling energy poverty as a key pillar of the social dimension of energy transitions. And with the support of different international organizations, we have reached important results in this regard. We have approved at the ministerial level the voluntary principles for just and inclusive energy transitions, which has set the key aspects that should not be overlooked by policymakers when designing energy transition policies. Acknowledging that we still have a huge gap in access to clean cooking, we have also prepared the roadmap for the Brazil's G20 presidency clean cooking strategy, where we have evolved from previous G20 work um, and identify the key actions that should be put in place in terms of financing, policy, data, and technologies to increase access to clean cooking, and all of that with the support of the World Bank, the International Energy Agency, and SE4All. At the G20 summit in Rio in November last year, global leaders have endorsed the need to advance efforts on access to clean cooking worldwide. And we will keep this momentum this year. The Global Coalition for Energy Planning, which is another outcome from the Brazilian G20 presidency, will be addressing efforts to support developing countries on having energy access as part of the policy implementation, design, and many other aspects that might be needed in the medium, long, and also short-term perspective. We know that we cannot do this alone. We need international organizations, countries, philanthropies, multilateral banks, and all relevant stakeholders mobilized so that we can overcome this situation. You can be sure that Brazil recognizes the value of the multilateral process, and you can also be sure that SDG 7 is going to be a substantial part of our work throughout 2025 in all multilateral forums that we will be leading, notably BRICS presidency this year, and also at COP30. Brazil is looking forward to keep this conversation in Belém in November this year, knowing that access to energy is a crucial part for NDC implementation for a wide range of countries, and you can count on Brazil to work together with you all to achieve further commitment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. De Assis, and really, I'd like to underscore what you mentioned, which is Brazil's role, particularly last year during the G20 presidency, and also underscoring your focus on energy access and clean cooking. With that, I'd like to move on to our next speaker, who is Ms. Renzi, who is the Manager of International Affairs and Community Outreach, the National Energy Authority of New Guinea, to speak. Ms. Panda, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Excellency. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you so much thank you for inviting and allowing PNG to also share its experiences on how do we address the challenges moving forward in progressing our UN SDG 7 target. For us as a country in 2021, when we were finalizing our first and second NDC to the UNFCCC, the finalization of that document exposed a very important and significant challenge in our energy sector because we weren't unable to put together and put forward quantified targets under the UNFCCC for the energy sector. It triggered a very important political decision in PNG to pass a legislation in 2021 and also an accompanying national energy policy. The National Energy Act, or the landmark legislation that was passed in 2021, allowed for the government to strengthen its international commitments towards its UN SDG 7, as well as its commitment under the Paris Agreement. Not only was the legislation very important in triggering the necessary energy reforms back in Papua New Guinea, it was also very important in establishing the administrative regulatory setup that was needed, very much needed by the government to unbundle what previously existed as a monopoly in the electricity industry. And for a country with over 12 million citizens, with a population of over 12 million people, electricity access is very challenging, especially for the 80% of our population living in the rural areas. Now, what's very unique about the habitation of the areas, especially the rural communities, is that land is owned by almost 80 to 85% of uh, the people in PNG, which means that they get to choose where they live and they have their habitation, which makes energy access very, very difficult for the country and the government. So the reform process in 2021 was very important for the government of PNG, which has now led to the development of our first 5 subsector renewable energy policies, which includes hydro, solar, wind, geothermal, and bioenergy. And we're also exploring other policies, which includes women in energy and also the subsector renewable energy policies that will improve renewable energy access into the rural communities of PNG. Another important milestone for Papua New Guinea was the recent passing of our 5 key regulations last year by the government. The 5 key regulations targeted at improving the electricity access for the entire country in terms of promoting the off-grid electricity access. And this is very important for our rural communities because in order to lift our communities out of poverty and the current challenges they have within their day-to-day living and access to other important development services, energy and access to renewable energy, electricity sources is going to be extremely important for them. So the government has seen that it's very important to promote the off-grid small power systems regulation, which is part and parcel of the 5 regulations that was approved and passed by our parliament late last year. Now, moving on to what is going to be very important for us as a country when looking around the room at our partners are 3 important things. One is financing. From the outcome of the COP29 in November in Baku, PNG welcomed the decision on the USD 300 billion per year, but we felt that in order to really address the energy needs of Papua New Guinea as a SEEDS member, including other developing countries, the threshold is not sufficient for us. Access to concrete financing for high impact projects such as hydro is going to be very important. So financing is going to be very important for PNG and also other small island states and developing countries. The second one is technology. Technology is going to be very significant because for small island states like PNG, we need to have a seed-specific technology that targets is also the user-friendly capacity of those technology and our ability to access them as well. The third and the most important thing, and I think I observe ILO being reflected in the work that is being done by the high-level committee, is on the just transition of labor and manpower in most of the developing countries, and especially SEEDS and LDCs. This is going to be extremely important because as long as we have the right workforce in place to move forward the necessary policy and legislative reforms we have in our countries, we will definitely progress towards achieving our NDC targets as well as our UN SDG targets and goals. And PNG is also looking forward to working with our climate change officials in PNG to start the process of reviewing and preparing our third NDC for submission this year. And what's going to be very important for us as we conclude is an equal accessibility to technology, Chair. And I think that's very important because for us developing countries, most developing countries and SEEDS member states, we are consumers and recipients. We are not inventors of these technologies, and we do appeal to countries who are, responsible for renewable energy technologies, that when it comes to deployment, do not leave us behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Panda. I really underscoring the role of PNG and commitments, and thanks for laying out the milestones there, as well as really the focus on regulations to unlock investment, and particularly at the community level, and how that can then also help access financing and technology. Thank you. With that, I'd like to close this round of country interventions and member states by inviting to speak Mr. Kande Junkela, who needs no introduction as it relates to SDG 7, but I want to stick to protocol and introduce him as chairman of the Presidential Initiative on Climate Change, Renewable Energy and Food Security for Sierra Leone. Mr. Junkela, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And it's great to see friends again as we try to push the energy access agenda. I see three opportunities for Africa to accelerate universal access. One, I think energy trade will be important between and among countries. Our natural renewable energy resources are abundant. But in many cases, I don't see countries on their own being able to achieve universal access without energy trade. Second, I believe we should leverage our green resources, forests, cover, and other green assets to leverage more financing into energy projects. We're not doing enough of that. And also carbon offset possibilities in the voluntary carbon markets. Third, we need to have innovative guarantee schemes. For a number of African countries, projects exist, but the risk profile is so high, it's very, very difficult to attract investments without guarantee schemes. So let me come down to Sierra Leone, what we've done. In the last decade, we've been able to increase electricity access from 15% to 36%. But the road ahead is very tough. And here's what we've tried to do in the past year and a half. Number one, with the support of Sustainable Energy for All and other partners, we've launched in November last year our Green Energy Transition Plan, which already projects our efforts to add about 1 gigawatt of electricity in the next 10 years. Second, we're working with the World Bank now to finish our clean cooking strategy and action plan, which we will launch later, probably in the second quarter. Third, bulk power. We already have projects, over 300 megawatts of projects, feasibility studies done. Now we're trying to get partners and investment in. This year, 2025, we will add 80 megawatts of solar power supported by the World Bank Respite Program and the IFC Release Program. So out of the 300 megawatts, we believe we'll add 80 megawatts this year. It is our hope that next year, with the work we're doing with Masdar here in UAE and Infinity Power, we'll add probably another 140 megawatts of both renewable energy, both solar power and hydro. We put 200 more mini grids to be deployed across the country. In this regard, we want to thank the European Union, who will work with us this year in March or April to launch a 50 million euros mini grids initiative that will add 60 mini grids, and then with the World Bank DERMS program, Decentralized Regional Renewable Energy Initiative, will add about another 60 to 100. So we will approach our 200 mini grids targets very soon. Last two comments I will make is that we have revised our regulations. Renewable energy technologies will come in duty-free and without value-added tax. So we're incentivizing mini grid operators and others to be able to bring in technology at a lower cost. Two big challenges we have now. Grid flexibility. We want to integrate more mini grids into the grid, more renewables into the grid, but the grid cannot handle it. And I think this is going to be a challenge for many African countries, the transmission networks and the distribution systems that will allow more deployment of bulk power renewables is going to be a big challenge. We're going to get support from the Millennium Challenge Corporation and others to build another transmission line. We're working with India as well to introduce an additional transmission line in the northern country. In a number of countries, Sierra Leone, Zambia, Guinea, huge mining sector. In our country, the projected demand just in the mining sector over the next 6 years is 500 megawatts of power. In 10 years, the mining sector will need a gigawatt. It's a big challenge, but it's an opportunity. How do we leverage our mineral wealth to get in the level of capital we need? With all the efforts the multilateral agencies are making, there's not enough money coming in. Africa still attracts less than 3% of renewable energy investments. The hope I see is how we repackage our mineral wealth to access bigger money. A lot of the multilaterals, especially the World Bank, when we discuss, it's about debt sustainability. Debt sustainability allows us to attract a few $100 million. That will not change the infrastructure landscape in Africa. We must be clever about how we use our dream assets, but also our mineral wealth to attract bigger, more significant capital to transform our energy infrastructure, but also the broader infrastructure to advance competitiveness and growth in the economies. We are launching our mineral wealth fund, which will allow us probably leverage $2-3 billion to meet the ambition we have of universal energy access. At the pace we're going with multilateral financing, it will take us another 30-40 years if we go at that speed and scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yunkela, and really great to see how Sierra Leone is actually is a good example of how assistance actually creates impact, assistance from donor countries, and also looking at the challenges ahead. Another challenge that we have ahead is that we are closing within 25 minutes, and we have about 10 speakers lined up. So moving on, I'd like to ask our next speakers to stick to 2 minutes, if you may, please. And with that, I'd like to invite our next speaker, who is Mr. Stefan. Yep.
Interesting discussion, and now as an implementation organization, changing a little bit the altitude of the discussion to some technical aspects and experiences from the ground. As we as GIZ, financed by the German government, but also other donors like Norway here at the table, and Netherlands and Switzerland, we work with one of our flagship projects that I want to highlight that you might know, Energizing Development, on promoting decentralized climate-friendly energy solutions, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, and collecting a lot of experiences there. And this also to be mentioned very much from our strategy point of view, connecting like pure energy access, of course, especially with livelihoods and productive use. Some facts and figures maybe. We have connected or brought access to 31 million people, 100,000 businesses, and 33,000 social institutions worldwide, Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, mainly also Latin America. And what we see at the moment, what very much works on the ground, also coming from this productive use, livelihoods perspective, is demand-side subsidies, also for very small actors, institutions, but also individuals. And another terminology, very long in the sector, but again, needs to be always mentioned, is of course result-based financing. And maybe because we talked a lot about billions and money and also high-level things, I want to add one experience on the ground just to give a little bit emotion and pictures to the discussion. We supported a lady called Margaret in Kenya, who runs a cereal business, is a mother of 3. And what we did, and now showing, for instance, how especially that works, we introduced her through a last mile entrepreneur that we support to electric pressure cooker. And that allowed the lady first to increase her business. It allowed her to keep her family and also, take her parental responsibilities while working on the job, because she did not need to handle charcoal anymore, had disconnection from the fluctuating price for charcoal. And she's not here, but this is one of these examples where we on the ground really tackle the individual needs of the people, the gender perspective, and the livelihoods as described earlier. With that, I want to close maybe with 2 final messages. Keep the focus on the people and the emotions, and not just on the big numbers. I think that motivates the people and that brings some dynamics to the discussion. And the second, again, let's bundle focus on solutions that work, that exist, and maybe not too many new initiatives and solutions every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Magre, particularly for highlighting GSS impact on the ground and focus on solutions. With that, I'd like to move on to Mr. Stefano Marguccio, who is Deputy CEO of Sustainable Energy for All. Mr. Marguccio, you have the floor.
Thank you, Raul. Energy for All was created by the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to advocate for the end of energy poverty. And the first CEO, she's sitting in front of me, was the one who worked so well that somehow brought to the constitution of SDG 7 as one of the targets of the Sustainable Development Agenda. I would like to focus on what we have to do and take your challenge, Raul. First, I think we need to keep up the political momentum, meaning I saw in the Pact for the Future that energy is not there anymore. It came back to be a cost-cutting issue and not a standalone issue. I think this will take away power from what we are doing. And so I look at all the members countries here to really push in the coming 3 years when the discussion will start to have energy as a standalone issue. Then, of course, we have the opportunity of COP30 to push for ambitious targets in the NDCs on the energy side. But I mean, we are really at the turning point. Second point is that we have to show that action is possible. And in this, I would like to highlight the initiative that the World Bank, the African Development Bank, Rockefeller Foundation, together with ESI for All, launched this Mission 300, which is giving access to 300 million Africans by 2030, which is very ambitious, very politically risky. But I mean, what I think is if we are able to show that we are deploying, this will make really a snowball effect, I'm sure of it, and will focus the attention on the energy sector. To some of this ambitious agenda, and if we are able to do it, we will half the amount of people without access, which is not the target, but is already something. And finally, I think we have to maximize the cooperation. There is a lot of overlapping in what we are doing. Let's try to act as a team. We will have a forum in Barbados later in March. You are all invited. We will be hosted by Mia Motley, who has been a great advocate of the reform of the development finance system. We want to focus on small island development states because they are the losers of the breaking of the Paris Agreement, if this will happen this year. We want to focus on finance and just energy transition. Please come with us and really let's try to work together to make the SDG a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marguccio. Really, again, thank you for underscoring examples of action on the ground and focus on solutions. And thanks for the invitation to Barbados. We cannot reject that one. With that, let me move on to the next speaker, who is Mr. Keisuke Solomon, who is Director of Sensitivity. So, you have the floor.
Thank you, and thank you for convening this meeting and inviting us, the IEA. The IEA is a proud co-custodian of the SDG 7 tracking report alongside the IRENA and other organizations gathering here. The report findings show notable achievements in France, but also reveal uneven and insufficient progress in several areas. So about a year ago, at the COP28 here in the UAE, the countries committed to doubling energy efficiency improvements and tripling renewable energy capacity by 2030, and they are critical steps to advancing the SDG 7. The renewable electricity stands out as a notable achievement, with the IEA's latest assessment indicating that the tripling is within reach. But if countries implement consistent and predictable policies to address the financing, permitting, and the system integration challenges. However, the progress remains uneven across countries. Beyond power sector, the picture for the renewables is less optimistic. So the share of modern renewables remain low in both transport and heating. Similarly, the energy efficiency the improvements remain far too slow, with global energy intensity improving by only 1% in 2023 and last year 24. And that's half the average rate during the last decade. In terms of the access, the significant progress has been made, particularly in, for instance, Southeast Asia. Yet by 2030, 8% of the global population is projected to still lack electricity access, and over 20% will remain reliant on polluting cooking fuels. And the disparities are starkest in Sub-Saharan Africa, Central and Southern Asia. There are initiatives such as the last year's IEA hosted summit for clean cooking in Africa, and that have brought some new momentum, but sustained efforts are crucial. High inflation, debt distress, and the uncertain global economy make achieving SDG 7 even more challenging, especially for the most vulnerable. The calls for greater policy efforts, supportive and predictable regulatory frameworks, and the stronger international cooperation would be needed. So thanks again to the IRENA and the UN for convening this discussion. And alongside your organizations, the IEA remains fully committed to supporting all countries in achieving SDG 7 and the broader 2030 agenda. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Solomon, and really underscoring IEA's leadership and particularly the chair of last year's report and the handover to IRENA for this year's report. And with that, let me move on to the next co-custodian agency, and I'd like to invite Ms. Heather Adai, unit head for. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here, distinguished guests and participants. So yes, I'd like to really highlight, I have kind of a quick line of how we can accelerate progress towards SDG 7. The first would be integrate. We talk about integrated energy planning, but we need to be integrating energy across the development agenda. This requires, the lack of clean cooking is responsible for 3.2 million deaths each year. So and the lack of electricity is preventing healthcare. So we need to make sure that energy is integrated into health sector planning to make sure that they are understanding this is included in their budgets, they understand how to do it, etc. So integration is very important. We need to also promote. We need to promote that energy needs to be a part of the agendas across different sectors. WHO is really working hard to make sure that energy access is integrated into much of its work around environmental determinants of health, for example, air quality. So this is something, for example, WHO is just putting forward an updated roadmap for the health sector's response to tackling air pollution. And this specifically includes addressing clean energy as a mechanism to do so. So we really need to make sure that we are promoting this as a way. This is not only a health issue, but it's also an environment issue. You know, half of global black carbon emissions are associated with the lack of clean cooking in the home. So this needs to be, clean cooking needs to be integrated into environmental plans to address. So that's another energy aspect. Renewable energy is a way to achieve environmental goals. Same with gender. A lack of clean cooking is a massive source of inequity, for gender inequity. Women and girls are spending hours each day that could be spent doing other things to enable themselves. And so how do we do this? We have to strengthen the capacity, we have to strengthen finance, and we have to strengthen activities on the ground to address clean cooking. We need to give the skills and powers to member states to actually really integrate energy into their sectoral plans, etc. So there's many opportunities that we can do, and considering time, I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much again for also highlighting the interlinkages of renewable energy with health and gender. With that, let me move on to Mr. Sandeep Kohli, who is Senior Energy Specialist at the World Bank. Sandeep, you have the floor.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm here filling in a role for the SMAP manager, but I also am leading the Energy Data Hub. And in that capacity, I'm very involved in the SDG 7 reports that come in every year. And so I think a lot's been said and spoken, but let me pick up on a few themes, particularly as we look to the roadmap beyond 2030. And I think first and foremost, I want to start with a positive note. And the positive note is, yes, we do have whatever the number is, 580 million people without electricity access, but we have achieved electricity access in tremendous numbers over the past decade. And I think there is a kudos that is also needed to be said to those involved in this, and to the countries and the governments and the agencies, all down from the national governments to the very ground level municipalities that have been instrumental in making some of this happen. But as we look forward to the challenges, I think we need to continue to work on the themes of consensus building and of not reinventing the wheel, but really being able to pick up from successes that have been achieved in certain parts of the world, see how we can transfer them to others, as well as seeing where different parts of the world actually differ. And on that note, let's just say, where do we not have access to electricity? If we look at the 20 countries that are lacking the most in terms of, or contributing the most in terms of the gap, 18 out of those 20 are in sub-Saharan Africa. These are countries that have fragility as one of their characteristics. The stability that is needed to have this long-term investments in long-term infrastructure are not there in many cases. And so when we look even at the M300, what we are seeing in terms of trying to achieve this very ambitious target of reaching 300 million in sub-Saharan Africa, our very rough estimates are that about half of them would be coming through off-grid and mini-grid solutions that Mr. Jumkela also alluded to in his conversation. So just think about it, pause for a minute. We are talking about between 5 and 7 years reaching 150 million people through off-grid and mini-grid type solutions. This is unprecedented. And we've got to look at how we try to achieve those things. At the same time, let's not lose focus on the other 150 million, which we are saying are going to get grid electricity. And there again, you have to look at what does it take to build a transmission line, generation assets, and other things in countries that may be politically unstable. Again, Mr. Yumkula referred to sort of the guarantee structures that can take away on risks. But I think we need deeper discussions and greater analysis from experts who know this area to see, because guarantees do not take away risks. They do not change ground realities. So I think we've got to think innovatively on how we move to achieving those things that we're saying are to be achieved. And I have to put in the plug that data is at the heart of this. And therefore, the SDG 7 and how we are approaching it, both up until 2030 and beyond, are very important. Let's not lose sight of the fact that there's been something of a data revolution that we are all anticipating, whether it is big data or AI. And I think if we want to achieve the goals that we've set ourselves in geographies that are difficult, for communities that are in remote areas, as the candidate from, the representative from Papua New Guinea mentioned, these are all things that will require a certain amount of fresh thinking and innovative solution finding. And we should be ready from the data angle to get that. The other thing I think is, one thing is about bringing out the reports, but we need to keep monitoring how the implementation of many of these programs is going. We don't want to come out with an F grade at the end of the academic year. We want to be able to make the improvements as things on the ground. And I think that's what we should all be thinking about. And let me also mention one other thing. We've mentioned clean cooking. As someone who's sort of old enough to, in my own mom's kitchen and grandmom's kitchen, have seen the transition from the use of coal, charcoal, wood, kerosene stoves, LPG, and electric cooking. I can tell you firsthand that the solutions that we're looking for probably do not cost more than $20 in people's homes. So we need to think and reflect, is this just about throwing more money at it? Or is there more innovation needed? Are there other chains or links in this chain that are not strong enough? And are we paying enough attention to those? So these are just some thoughts as we think about the roadmap ahead. But I do want to end with a very positive note. We should give ourselves some commendation on the achievements that have been made. I continue to believe that the world today, in terms of access, is much better than what it was 30 years ago. Definitely much better than when half the world was under colonial rule. So I think I have to say that we are on a positive trajectory, and we need to think about how we sustain that, grow that, and innovate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sandeep, and really from the World Bank support to these efforts, and also for sharing those reflections. Let me move on to the next speaker, Will Smith, Russia, who from the
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I think I'm going to start opposite to my colleague here with the negative parts, not the positive ones. A lot of colleagues here talked about how many unacceptable number of people still without access to electricity. Further, 2.5 billion lack access to clean cooking facilities. For the past 3 to 4 decades, the share of fossil fuels still remains stubbornly high at 80%. This is now projected to drop to 70% by 2030 with the current set of policies. But we need further ambitions, and with that ambition, it could decrease even more. We're still facing staggering financing gaps of $3 trillion USD annually to stay on track with the goals of Paris Agreement. This all shows us that there is urgency to act. We must accelerate the deployment of clean energy technologies. We must tackle the challenges associated with the decarbonization of heavy emitting industries, which is responsible for 22% of CO2 emission globally. How do we do this? We need to start bringing focus into solutions, and industry is part of that solution, especially in the global south. Industry is needed to meet the renewable energy targets in the global south by deployment of clean industrial technologies, which can leapfrog conventional carbon industrial heavy emitting model. Partnership is the focus on this. We need to work together in implementing solutions to close the energy access gap, scale up energy efficiency and renewable energy deployment in industry. To accelerate this, we are focusing on 3 priority enablers: innovation, infrastructures, and new emerging technologies. We need to promote actions on the ground to improve policy coherence, unlock investments, and demonstrate new technologies and build local capacities, especially women and youth. In UNIDO, we have several programs that works on that and promoting that, including the Global Clean Tech Innovation Program, which support 1,300 startups in 9 countries to develop promising and investment-ready innovative technology. We also work on promoting green hydrogen, and recently UNIDO launched the Global Alliance for Responsible and Green Minerals in cooperation with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Through the initiative like the Industrial Deep Decarbonization Initiative, we are working in harmonization of standards for low carbon steel and cement and motivating governments to commit to green public procurement. The industrial sector plays essential role to meet the renewable energy targets by investing in green hydrogen, sustainable minerals, and low carbon technologies. In the coming years, we have to continue focusing on expanding renewable energy deployment, improving energy access, promoting green industrialization, which all are essential component of achieving SDG 7 and a net zero emission by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing these insights from UNIDO and the linkage with industrial development. So let me now move on to Ms. Hadisa Abdul Munini, who is the global focal point for the SDG 7 Youth Constituency.
Thank you. Distinguished guests, world leaders, esteemed colleagues, good morning. It is an honor to address you today at this critical gathering on Sustainable Development Goal 7. And I want to thank Irina, the SDG 7 tag, and the UN Energy for also giving us this room to discuss the critical role that youth play in the transition to renewable energy. First, I'd like to begin by saying that it's very important that we understand that youths are not just passive beneficiaries of sustainable development, but rather we are active agents of change. And across the globe, you see movement from youths driving innovative solutions, advocating for policy reforms, leading community projects, all to achieve SDG 7. So at the constituency, the SDG 7 Youth constituency, to further enhance this movement, we have some following activities that we've lined up. And some of these activities are basically tailored towards our broad membership. So our membership comprises of young professionals, students, and then, entrepreneurs, students, and then young professionals. So for the entrepreneurs, we have the Youth Sustainable Energy Hub. The Youth Sustainable Energy Hub is a platform that allows us to showcase youth projects from all over the world. And it allows us to focus on 3 key areas, which are capacity building, mentorship, and also financing. And with this, we've launched it before, and we had enormous support, and a lot of projects were supported. For this cohort as well, we've reached out to partners, and we hope to begin it by the first quarter of this year. Then for the second project, which we have, they are largely focused on the young professionals and then the students. This is an exchange program. So we've got to realize that for some part of the world, youths are usually not really aware of what the transition means. For others, they have the idea, but they need that environment that would enable them to understand and support their project and ideas as well. So we hope to have, and have already started conversation on having placements, taking youths from different part of the world and exchanging them in department of agencies of different countries, international organizations, universities as well, so that they get to learn and then they bring it back to their home country and adopt that as well. So that we believe would also aid in the transition to renewable energy as well. And then also this year, we've realized that there are a lot of youth activities going on, but there isn't really a metric in place that allows us to understand how far we are doing and if these initiatives are actually working. So for this year as well, we hope to have a concrete plan and also a project to determine how far we've gone and what more needs to be done. So we need your support, and we are also engaging youth from all over the world to ensure that the transition is achieved and is also accelerated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Abdul Mumini, for highlighting the role of the youth, not only in the future, but today. With that, let me move on to our next speaker, who is Mr. Syed Munir Ashur, who is chairman of the Institute for Policy, Advocacy, and Governance.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Ilna for being kindly invited. Best of the last is always good. Most of the thing I would have wanted to say have been said already. So I'm going to push the boundary a little bit. I'll try to simplify the complex. Most of us sitting in this table, I can safely assume, in office and home, energy, fossil fuel. How many of us in this table or room with a conscious individual effort to have part of the electricity come from something like rooftop solar system? How many? So that part seeing all the time. Number one, lifestyle change. Number two, it's as much a social product as it is the big SDGs and other things we talk about. How many of my colleagues have alluded to the gender issue. They mentioned to me on my left, I've highlighted youth. The reality is we are not reaching the we don't put So I would tend to propose we gradually build a consensus whereby living in the age we are, where technology leapfrogging everything else, digital divide, energy divide are treated equally importantly, and we find a way, in my opinion, to let it find place in even UN Human Rights Charter. Every child born must have the access to clean energy technology. Secondly, let's face it, milestones. How, when we can do it. Are there good things happening? Sure. I mean, my World Bank colleague have mentioned a lot of numbers. What is also equally true, there is severely spreading energy poverty. A lot of people with access to electricity don't have appliances. Their cost of electricity is quite high. So whether it's digital divide, energy poverty, these are multifunctional. We do not have the option of treating each problem in a silo. It doesn't work. They're true cross-cutting, they're cross-cutting, and our job coming here, government, IOs, civil society, how do we bring those cross-functional things into one platform and push it to forum where it matters? My last point would be, given the shortage of time, we also have to find a way to measure walking the talk. So I would encourage you to take the lead. Every 6 months, take a stock take, how much we're actually progressing, how much change will 1 year is too much longer time these days. And last but not the least is say this interface between digital and energy is real time. And in future, civil society knowledge fit with our partners like World Bank or IRINA, we would like to work in tandem to bring these two domains together because time is short, the divide is getting much bigger, and we can't waste too much time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and also for highlighting also the field. Really want to thank all the speakers for sharing these interventions and reflections. And now I'd like to invite Ms. Sheila Oparocha, Executive Director of Energy, facilitator of the SDG 7 Technical Advisory Group, to provide closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to deliver these closing remarks at this very important event. Let me begin on behalf of my co-facilitator of the SDG 7 TAC, Hans-Olof Ibrick, and myself, in expressing our gratitude to the organizers, speakers, and all the participants for your engagement and contribution to the important discussion we have had here today. Our conversation reaffirms that energy is a critical enabler of sustainable development, from its role in the eradication of poverty to the advancement in health, education, quality of education, equal opportunities, and economic growth, as well as in combating climate change. Understanding the potential interlinkages of SDG 7 with other SDGs is essential to accelerating progress on these critical goals. The interlinkages between energy and gender equality are of particular importance to achieving multiple co-benefits. Electricity access increases women's employment opportunities by 9 to 23 percentage points. Clean cooking solutions, as we heard from WHO, saves women in low-income households up to 40 hours per week and prevents illness and death caused by polluting fuels. Yet despite these benefits, stark gender inequalities persist in the energy sector. Women account for less than 20% of the global energy workforce. Female-led companies receive less than 13% of off-grid energy investments in spite of interventions such as the Energizing Development Program. Only 18% of official development assistance for energy is tagged for gender equality compared to 45% across other sectors. To address these gaps, gender equality must no longer be an afterthought. It must sit at the heart of all our energy transition discussions, and the lack of continued commitment to gender equality is no longer acceptable. I'd like to propose 3 critical ways that we need to act. First, a paradigm shift recognizing women as leaders and agents of change for a just and inclusive energy transition. Second, increasing investments in women's employment and entrepreneurship in the clean energy sector. And third is embedding gender equality into accountability frameworks through the collection of sex disaggregated data and including gender-specific key performance indicators in all our interventions. Distinguished participants, 2025 is a pivotal year for the international community's discussions on gender equality. COP30 will serve as a crucial platform for the international community to endorse a new UNFCCC Gender Action Plan, a key milestone towards ensuring that gender is central to climate policy and action. The 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action will be celebrated at the Commission for the Status of Women in March this year, and the third review of SDG 5 on gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls will take place at the 2025 High-Level Political Forum in July. The work of the SDG 7 tag and the policy briefs that we develop, covering recommendations based on expertise and evidence, will be instrumental in advancing the discussion on the gender and energy interlinkages at these intergovernmental dialogues. Achieving the SDG 5 and SDG 7 also demands innovative financial solutions. The upcoming International Conference on Finance for Development in July offers a critical opportunity to advocate for scaling our gender ambitions in key financial policy solutions. We've heard of Mission 300. The African Heads of State Summit will take place in January, in a few weeks' time. And we call on the Africa Development Bank, the World Bank, and its partners to be more ambitious by being intentional and ensuring a 50% target of the 300 million people to be connected to electricity in sub-Saharan Africa by 2030 to be women. As we have heard from Mr. Ibrick and from others, to achieve the 23rd agenda, we must start looking, aside from achieving the 23rd agenda, we must start looking ahead. The SDG 7 summit in 2027 will be an important opportunity to address the gap that SDG 7 is one of only 6 SDGs without any specific indicator on gender. It provides an opportunity, thus, for us to start exploring the opportunity to have a specific indicator on gender and energy in a post-2030 agenda. In closing, I'd like to thank you once again for your participation. Let us continue to build momentum and to forge transformative partnerships to ensure that we have the energy to achieve a sustainable and prosperous future for all. Thank you.
So, good morning, and let's try to take the seats and to start. I think countries are on my right-hand side and industries, utilities on my left-hand side, at least for the round table. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this session dedicated to key enablers for energy transition, grid and storage. My name is Norela Constantinescu. I am Deputy Director of IRENA Innovation and Technology Center, located in Bonn, Germany, and I'm going to moderate this session. We have approximately 1 hour and 30 minutes ahead of us, and we will go actually into following on UAE consensus, of course, back COP28, to triple the renewables capacities by 2030, which means 11.5 terawatt in 2030. But in order to arrive there, we need, of course, the key enablers. And although they are coming a little bit slower in our attention, the grids and storage represent one of the major and pivotal key enablers for the future. And COP29 made the pledge around these key enablers to make sixfolds the storage capacity to reach 1,500 gigawatts by 2030, and to add or modernize 25 million kilometers of grids by 2030. Of course, being an energy engineer, I would say that these are numbers, and we need more than kilometers and gigawatt. We have to look in other elements in order to make the power system working. And today, I will have the pleasure actually to discuss together with you, with the member states, with research, industry, and utility community, what we need to put in place to achieve the pledge beyond those numbers. But before going into the panel discussion, I will start by inviting my colleague, Mr. Raul Alfaro Pelico, Director of IRENA Knowledge Policy and Finance Center, to give us the set scene presentation. Raul, you have 10 minutes or a little bit less if possible.
Thank you, Norela. We have no time, so I'll try to speed it up. Distinguished guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this session on the key enablers for the energy transition, grid and storage. Let's move quickly to the next slide. I think we have some context. So next slide, please. Showing. Thank you. So as you can see, and as Norela mentioned, there is a framing, which is the UAE consensus. And as we know it, the demand for electricity is expected to grow globally over the coming years due to robust economic development and the electrification of end use and hard-to-abate sectors. This demand will be actually further compounded by the growth of artificial intelligence and subsequent large-scale data center energy needs. The UAE consensus that took place at COP28 was a landmark decision, as we know it, by over 130 countries to set targets for advancing the energy transition by tripling renewable energy power capacity and doubling energy efficiency improvements by 2030. So for grid expansion and modernization and storage in particular as enablers, building on the UAE consensus progress, the COP29 presidency launched the Global Energy and Grids Pledge, which is currently supported by 58 countries that aim to increase global energy storage capacity 6 times from 2022 levels to 1,500 gigawatts by 2030. So endorsers of the pledge also have committed to scaling up investments in grids, supporting global goals, to add or refurbish 25 million kilometers of grids globally by 2030, and an addition of 65 million kilometers by 2040. So the global energy storage and grids pledge prioritizes the deployment of renewables through grids and seeks to enable the most efficient use of variable renewable energy. And that will be done through storage. Together with the UAE consensus, they represent essential steps toward meeting global rising energy demands while ensuring a just, equitable, and sustainable transition away from fossil fuels. Now, just getting into more details, in 2023, as you know, and you have seen in many reports from IRENA, there was a historic acceleration in global renewable capacity additions. 473 gigawatts were reached, accounting for 85.5% of new power generation capacity that were added, and a 14% year-on-year increase in cumulative renewable capacity. This historic acceleration was driven by conducive policies, geopolitical developments, and 73% of it was attributed to solar. There was also a significant decrease in costs. Now, of the 473 gigawatts added, 347 approximately gigawatts were solar. Regarding storage, PAM hydropower added around 142 gigawatts of capacity, which remains the largest contributor to global storage, followed by battery storage, which is expected to see exponential growth, with capacity projected to increase from 86 gigawatts in 2023 to as much as 900 gigawatts by 2030. Now, with the electricity system transitioning from one where large baseload power plants provided the least cost source of electricity to one where a more distributed system of variable renewable energy technologies, primarily solar and wind, are now fulfilling that role, the need to upgrade and modernize market designs, grids, and the role of energy storage are increasing in importance. So these are going to be the key enablers for the transition. Now, looking into grid expansion and modernization, connecting renewable energy to the power system needs grid infrastructure, including overhead lines, underground and submarine cables, and power substations. Despite the obvious, this fact has been widely overlooked in several regions. Urgent actions must be taken to avoid lagging grid infrastructures, which would then delay the energy transition. The tripling renewable power capacity target by 2030 makes planning and investing in grid development even more urgent. Unlike concentrated generation based on fossil fuel or large hydro power plants, wind and solar generators are distributed along extensive areas and multiple locations. So this requires expanding the grid to allow them to connect and to deliver the power in quantities needed, where and when it's needed. Investing in grid infrastructures also brings significant and extensive socioeconomic benefits, which are complex to quantify. Now, upgraded grids can electrify remote communities. They also empower rural economies and support distributed access for emerging industries and users, such as electric transportation, green hydrogen production, and data centers. However, deploying grid infrastructure is not done overnight. Due to this nature, power lines need to consider social and environmental impact across big areas, along all the routes, involving lengthy planning and permitting processes, and engaging multiple stakeholders, which consume a lot of time, even potentially delaying deployment. Now, together with streamlining these processes, anticipatory investments can compensate these time needs and are essential to unlock grid expansion and prevent future bottlenecks. An early assessment of these needs and the inclusion of its outcome in the national determined contributions and national energy strategies can notably support the timely achievement of the decarbonization targets. Now, on grid modernization, integrating renewables efficiently into the power grid requires modernized infrastructures, providing optimization benefits that also buy time for grid expansion. Smart electrification strategies include innovative grid management tools, which optimize energy flows, as well as minimize curtailments and enhance system resilience. Those tools, which potentially is multiplied when combined with storage, can stabilize energy supply, along with reducing the dependency on fossil fuels. One last point, digitalization and systemic innovation are the base for grid modernization. Now, the Coalition for Action, operating under the agency secretariat, is a key multi-stakeholder platform bringing together right now over 170 major players from the private sector, civil society, research institutions, and intergovernmental bodies. Its mission is to foster dialogue between government and non-governmental actors and drive collaborative solutions for the global energy transition. Under the Coalition for Action, members are developing a forthcoming report on solar and storage, with the preliminary findings already published on the Coalition's website. The forthcoming report focused on three main enablers for accelerating deployment. First, policies and incentives. Siloed policy making continues to hinder the systemic shifts required in energy policy and planning. This is across three aspects: operation within the energy market, pricing mechanisms, where policies and financial incentives need to provide investment signals, sustainable business models, and market mechanisms, and insurance and financing. Second, the storage in grid expansion and modernization plans. Energy storage must be factored into the planning and deployment of grid modernization and expansion of grid infrastructure. As the COP29 presidency calls to enhance energy grids, flexibility, and the way storage provides this, will be a key driver of the energy transition and the guiding principle of the new energy systems. And as I mentioned earlier, digitalization will play a key role in forecasting grid development patterns, power load growth, renewable electricity capacity, generation proportions, so we can assess the demand for flexibility and adjustment. Third and final is the standards and certifications. Under compliance across the research and development, safety evaluation, supply chain compliance, and life cycle management, which will be critical to the scaling up of PV hybrid storage applications to meet demand. Building on these three main enablers, the preliminary findings of this report provide four key policy focus areas. For the sake of time, I will detail one recommendation under each pillar. On area one, promoting solar storage as a key enabler, adopting national energy storage targets. Under area two, enhance grid flexibility and stability, improving and fully developing the regulatory framework for grid and energy storage integration. Under area three, developing solar and storage through federal financing and insurance, introducing diversified financial mechanisms, including fiscal incentives, which are necessary tools for mass adoption. Finally, under area four, related to certification and standard, one key highlight would be to really encourage participation, compliance, and implementation through international collaboration. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts, experiences, and insights. Finally, I'd like to express my gratitude for the continuous efforts of member states of the agency, as well as the IRENA Coalition for Action, who made this event possible. And I would like to extend my thanks to all of you joining us today. Back to you, Norela.
Thank you very much, Raul, for this scene setting
we have heard numbers. We have heard also flexibility. We have heard grid modernization and grid expansion. We have heard storage. In my word, long duration and also short duration for different power system needs. We have heard regulatory financing elements. So now I would like to start with the panel discussion and address first the member states. But before that, maybe a short reminder for you. If you hear something which you think it's interesting, please do not hesitate to post on social media with hashtag IRENA15A, so from the 15th General Assembly. So with that, I will turn to my first speaker from Germany, the State Secretary, Federal Minister for Economic Affairs and Climate Action, Mr. Stefan Wenzel. And I would like to address a question to you, Mr. Wenzel. So Germany has endorsed recently the Grids and Storage Pledge. We have 58 countries which endorse the pledge. Which is Germany perspective on the pledge implementation? Which are your experiences and how can you see the grids and storage developments within Germany? Of course, we also, because I'm European, so we have also offshore wind and so on. So how do you see these developments and which is experience from Germany? And for 3 to 4 minutes, if possible.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to give you some informations. And thanks for the introduction. It was very, very interesting. Renewable energy and energy efficiency, I think it's our best options to lower global emissions. And we can save 80% of global emission reductions if we simply implementing the COP28 from the consensus of last year. And, implementing this global stocktake outcome requires progress on the enablers for an accelerated transition, and there are the grids very, very important. The storage options to use the flexibility of the grids and robust multi-level governance, training and skills, sustainable supply chains and finance. Therefore, we welcome the spotlight on the infrastructure, and the grids and storage are in the middle of that. They are the backbone to a decarbonized power system that we are committed to reach in the next decade. And you mentioned already the global grid and storage pledge, which we signed in Baku. And describe a little bit what we did in what we do in Germany. In Germany, we have prioritized the acceleration of the energy transition in the past year. We are on the track to have 60% of renewables in our electricity grid in 2024. And exactly because energy security is our priority, we are accelerating our energy transition, relying on clear targets and regulation, faster permitting, multi-level governance and public participation. And policies are paying off now. We have a solar photovoltaic boom and policy reforms also for wind in place. And we're declaring renewables as overriding public interest, designation of 2% of our land area, for example, for wind power. And Grid development is picking up. We started 1,700 kilometers of transmission lines last year and want to accelerate also the digitalization. So the grid is a very, very important point. We are also working hard on building up the interconnectors with our European neighbors, but also with neighbors, for example, with the Ukraine. Ukraine is also now part of the European grid. And also electricity storage, especially battery storage, will play an increasingly important role in Germany's energy supply in the coming years. And in the moment, it's poorly market driven. The 4 German transmission system operators have received requests for grid connection for large-scale battery storage with a total output of 161 gigawatts. That's really a lot. Also, not all of these requests can be realized. The number is clear an indication. And due to this great practical relevance and foreseeable development, the BMWK, my ministry, presented an electricity storage strategy where we are working on since December of 23. And so I think we have with grid and storage a very important point, and we see all over the world a lot of projects to bring countries together, to bring regions together, to bring local villages to the grid, or to build off even in villages or islands which are very remote. We can build also off-grid solutions to bring electricity to every remote place all over the world. That's possible with renewables. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wenzel, for highlighting this strategy you have regarding the land allocation. For example, this is something new which I hear, and of course the electricity storage strategy you mentioned, but also the regional and international cooperation, including for interconnectors. Thank you very much for that. I will move now to China. The director of Department for International Cooperation of National Energy Administration, Mr. Li Xiang. And the question I would like to address to you, it's we have seen high levels of wind and solar deployments in China. In the last decade, you also faced curtailment. So when this is developed fast, but you minimized them, and the renewables deployment continue. So which are the lessons you learned from the needs which have to be addressed by the key enablers we discussed today, grids and storage? And maybe, if possible, if you can touch upon also the market design. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, in recent years, China has been vigorously accelerating the green and low carbon energy transition. In 2024, China see a newly added 300 gigawatt renewable capacity, which might also account for more than half of global total, like 2023. And indeed, as you have pointed out, grid integration has always been a challenge during its rapid development. And as the proportion of renewables are rapidly increasing, this challenge is growing. And it is not only about grid integration, but also about multiple challenges like ensuring reliable power supply, as we know, given the uncertainty and the low confidence capacity of renewables. And the challenges like maintain power grid operation security. As we know, as gradual increasing in the penetration rate of renewables, the system in detail continue to decline, reducing the ability to withstand faults. Then the risk of a chain reaction increase, and not to mention the challenge of the rising system costs. So in order to address these challenges of integrating high proportion of large-scale renewable energy, In recent years, China has implemented a series of policies and actions to accelerate the construction of new power system. Yes, in China, we call it new power system. It's not just about renewable plus storage, not just the solution or technology. The vision of China's new power system features clean and low carbon, safe and sufficient, economical and efficient, coordinated in supply and demand, and flexible and intelligent. So, for example, we implemented the Power System Stability Assurance Action to strengthen the main grid frameworks and promote the application of grid-forming technologies. We carry out the large-scale and long-distance renewable power transmission action to take the clean electricity from large-scale wind and solar power base in the northwest desert China to the load center in the east and south, which are thousands of miles away. To the date, dozens of ultra-high voltage transmission channels are in operation with a capacity exceeding 300 gigawatt. We take actions on enhance the distribution networks as well to address the reliability problems led by the extreme weather. To enhance the confidence output level of new energy, we implemented projects that integrate computer power and electricity power to increase the green electricity use in data centers. We also built a number of intelligent microgrid projects, which increase self-generate and self-consume. We carry out the fossil power upgrade actions, giving the fossil power will still an supporting source of reliable power supply for a period in the future, like efficient adjustment, rapid load variation, and start-stop peak regulation. The fossil power is still vital in China's energy power system. So now the first round of flexibility retrofitting for coal-fired power project has been completed. We also enlarge storage capacity as well. I like the topic today. Both pumped storage and battery storage growing very fast in China. Now there are 57 gigawatt pumped storage are in operation and with more than 100 gigawatt in construction. And the battery storage has already realized commercial use in China. The total capacity surpassed 30 gigawatt. 30 gigawatt. From the consuming side, we carry out charging network expansion action as well, because EV now has already surpassed the traditional vehicles in terms of new sale in China. So the demanding more clean power, and at the same time, EV battles also provide flexibility for the power system. So currently, China's expressway service station has basically achieved the full coverage of charging infrastructure. We already have like more than 13 million charging piles supporting the low carbon travel of 24 million PV as the EVs. I know today many like Chinese enterprise and think tanks attend this roundtable. I think they may provide more value from their perspective of China's current situation. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Xiang, and thank you for highlighting actually indeed the security of power supply, which is at the heart of what we do, touching upon, of course, flexibility, what you do in terms of long duration and short duration storage, as well as a little bit on electrification strategy, which of course are important for the power system. I will move now to Dominican Republic, to Mr. Freddy Perez from National Energy Commission. And I would like to ask you, following, of course, on your strategy regarding renewables deployment, which are your key experiences and policies for integrating renewables while attracting investments in this other part of the world?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Well, the Dominican Republic, as you may know, is the second island in the Caribbean, which are the island with Haiti. We have a high demand, 3,800 megawatts. In the last 4 years, we increased our renewable energy from 9% in 2020 to 22% in 2024. We have a target, we have a goal, we have 30% by 2030. So we are working really hard with the public and private sector to increase our generation from renewable. We have so many add-ons in the recent year. We have made progress in the diversification of energy matrix. As a result, our strategy undertaken to promote energy transition, we went from, like I say, 9% in 2020 to 32% in 2014. And we have a goal in this year in 2025 to have the 20, at the end of the year, from 25% to 30% in 2020. This progress is due to a strategy policy that include tax incentive, transparency, legal certainty, and the elimination of bureaucracy barriers, in a favorable environment for investment and the development of sustainable products. The Dominican Republic has made the terminal commitment to lead the transition of renewable energy in the Latin America and the Caribbean region, with significant progress in the adoption of clean energy technology. The grid or the transmission grid in the last 4 years. The last year, we asking the new project to have a 50% of the capacity of the store. The government made a resolution number 5 2014 that established that all renewable projects larger than 20 megawatts must have a storage system. Actually, we have 4 projects in construction with the storage system. The resolution at the end of the year issued by the Superintendency of Electricity issued the regulation for the provision of frequency regulation auxiliary service with storage system. So the Dominican Republic, let me ask this. We have a challenge in persisting, like our transmission infrastructure that we have a lot of challenges, because now actually we have 22 projects in construction. We need to reduce the dependence of fossil fuel. We are working with a corporation of international to promote the channel technology, technology, renewable energy, strength, regional alliance for energy resilience. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this view, Mr. Perez, and also for underlying the diversification portfolio you take in terms of renewables, but also the challenges. So now we listened actually to 3 experiences from the countries regarding the policy strategies for implementing actually the grids and storage in Europe, in China, and also in Latin America and Caribbean region. I would like to go a little bit more and deep dive and have a call for the research institutes to see actually how these strategies can be implemented. And I will continue with NRL, so Laboratory Director and Alliance for Sustainable Energy President, Mr. Martin Keller. We have on one hand the generation which is going to be more and more using, of course, renewables. This is IRENA mission. It's combined with an increase of electricity demand driven by different sectors and uses, electromobility, data centers, heating and cooling industrial applications. So how NRL envision actually planning in terms of transmission and also maybe distribution, if you can deep dive, in order to meet actually these requirements, and which are the strategies and innovations you see to be put in place actually to ensure this balance across all the time frames between demand and renewables. The floor is yours, and
Okay.
again, 3 to 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this takes a whole day what you ask us to do, but so I just try to summarize. And you all know NREL, we're doing a lot of work in renewable energy and also on the systems integration, grid modernization, storage, all this together. So look, we all know that storage deployment and grid modernization are enabling a full carbon-free power system right now. So we have the technology. Modernizing the grid makes it flexible, automated, and efficient. It allows for a more efficient use of existing grid capacity. Bidirectional communication enables higher visibility and control of the system. A storage support large-scale integration of wind and solar generation provides value across a range of grid services and helps to mitigate impact of periods with extreme operation conditions. So we've done a lot of studies on this one. One of is the LA 100 study. Some of you might have known or seen this. So this found that 91% of new rooftop solar in 2045 will be correlated with storage. So rooftop and storage will increase significantly. But there's also incredible value of scaling clean energy deployment and reducing costs. So we've done a study for the United States. Smart appliances costing about 600 million can provide as much reserve capacity to the grid as a power plant's worth about 6 billion in the US power system alone. So 150 billion or more could be saved in the US on the avoided cost of construction of power plants, transmission lines, and substations using grid modernization and storage together, among other smart grid technologies. So what is the problem? One of the barriers is the lack of regulations or guidelines that explicitly state that storage can provide essential grid services. Because these protocols and practices have not been established, utilities and market operators may be unwilling to procure these services. In turn, storage developers and financing institutions will be unwilling to make the necessary capital investment if they do not feel these projects will be compensated. Not being able to discern the quality and quantity of service provided is also an issue. Battery systems, for example, can provide certain services much faster and more accurately than conventional resources, which may not be reflected in compensation for the service. Production cost models typically operate at an hourly resolution, which does not capture the value of BESS fast ramping capabilities. So NREL conducting plenty of analysis that will inform the deployment and development of protocols and best practices. For example, our researchers have added new capabilities to the NREL Regional Energy Deployment System, or REEDS. Some of you might know this model, capacity expansion model, to accurately represent the value of the NREL battery energy storage, and is allowed to provide grid services, an inherently complex modeling challenge. So overall, if I would summarize, yes, we see the modernization of the grid and storage together will be a massive next chapter in more deployment of renewables and creating a system which also will save a lot of money down the road. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keller, for actually underlying a kind of a stepwise approach. If we don't have deployed the grids, then we have other solutions which can be used, of course, until probably the grid is in place, the modernization and storage, and also underlining the element of combining roofs, so I suppose solar PV with and also electromobility with storage capabilities, but also the challenges and the needs in terms of markets and financing. With that, I move to the next research representative, president of State Grid Energy Research Institute,
Wei Bin, Mrs. Wei Bin, and the question I would like to address to you, it's as we have heard, China accelerated the energy transition process with the expansion of the power grid and the storage capacities. So if you can give your specific examples regarding the measures and experiences you took in State Grid Corporation of China. So the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Thanks for invitation and thanks for the questions. You're right. Over the past decades, the clean energy made rapid growth in China. Just as Mr. Li Xiang has said that we have 2024 we reached 1,030 gigawatt, 1,300 gigawatt for the wind and solar power capacity, and we also have an average utilization rates of wind and solar about 95% in the last 4 years. So what we think that makes such a progress, there are 3 aspects efforts played a very important role. So the first is the wide-scale power grid interconnection in China. China realized a nationwide grid interconnection in mainland in 2011, and with more and more interconnection transmission was built. Now China is operating the largest interconnected power grid in the world, and the transmission capacity of power grid inter-province and inter-regional power lines exceed 300 gigawatts, and more than 40% of electricity transmitted through these those lines were clean energy. So it gave a better experience to help the renewable energy development. And the second one, I think, is the smart grid system built. China was committed to build smart grid in 2008. So it's it's about a decade ago, and it made substantial progress. On the grid side, the grid company have used the advanced ICT and the control technologies to upgrade the electricity dispatching system with the real-time monitoring and the precise controlling to optimize the dispatch of multi-energy resources to help the better use of the renewable energy resources, including the solar and wind. On the demand side, we think we installed smart meters and load management system, so the demand side response can be stimulated to support the system balance. And third thing, I think, to this topic, China's system flexibility developed very rapidly. China government paid great attention to energy storage technology and investment. I think there are 2 areas. The one is pumped storage, the hydro pumped storage. It was the priority in China. By the end of 2024, the total installed capacity, just has said, is about 57 gigawatt, and also have 120 gigawatt is under construction. And the other one is the new technology energy storage. China government made policies to promote the investment in these areas, such as, for example, at the early stage of renewable development, the government require the renewable power projects equipped with storage, a certain amount of energy storage, ranging from 5% to 20%. And this policy is to help renewable energy to better stabilize their output, and they can interact with the system in a friendly way. And also, China made great effort in introducing the time of use tariff, and it to incentive the installation of the energy storage in the demand side to help the consumer to reduce their energy bill, and also on the other hand to help the power system to better use the renewable energy. So I think I would share some experience here, and I would like to cooperate with the internal expert to furthermore to discuss this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bin, for actually highlighting transmission, highlighting the smart solutions for the optimized use of resources, demand response, and also the energy storage strategy, as well as, in a way, the market design, which reflects on real time answer to the tariffs. After hearing the two representatives of research institutes, now I move to the industry, to storage. And I would like to ask Kato, Strategy Director, Energy Storage System, Mrs. Kang Kyoa Huang. Sorry if I didn't pronounce correctly your name. We have heard previously that the batteries are crucial solution and also an option of to provide flexibility to ensure the energy transition. Now, in terms of technology, what are the bottlenecks and challenges you see that could hinder the development and the deployment when taking into account the COP29 pledge, and how actually the batteries, which of course are still on the learning curve, can ensure the rapid, safe, and scaling up which is necessary across the world.
Okay, thank you, Arina, and distinguished guests, world leaders, and industry representatives. I'm Kang Chao Huang, director from CATL. CATL is the global leader in EV batteries and energy storage technologies. We are committed to drive higher share of renewables integration and replacement of fossil fuels in both power sector and transportation sector. So during the past year, I had the honor to lead the task force of global energy storage and grid stability under 100% renewable working group within ARENA coalition. As Raul introduced in the beginning, with the collaborative work and unwavering support of ARENA, we have released the preliminary findings of this report. And this is actually the first report of ARENA on global energy storage industry and how energy storage can contribute to foster grid stability and flexibility to integrate more renewables and ultimately move us closer to Paris Agreement. So in this report, we have outlined and put forward some actionable key recommendations for policymakers to consider. First of all, is global and national level energy storage target is very important to guide investment and to guide supply side to meet the energy demand and flexibility demand within the grid. So storage can provide flexibility that the grid needs. And second is that from industry perspective, market and pricing mechanism is very important. We need to further establish market mechanisms, especially to recognize and reward the backup reserve value or the capacity value of energy storage through capacity market or capacity pricing. Depends on the country's condition. So right now we see that the power value of energy storage has been captured by the peak valley difference within the energy or power market, but not the capacity value. So for the next step, that we need to recommend the makers to really further establish capacity markets and capacity pricing around the globe. This will reduce the initial cost and also stabilize IRR for investors and facilitate deployment of energy storage. And second recommendation is that financing and insurance is very important. Financing include green finance and incentives for energy efficiency and carbon reduction. And insurance is also a key because right now we don't see that insurance has know a lot about energy storage, and we need to have insurance that's tailored to energy storage system, especially covering the safety risks and also operational risks, including performance and utilization rates, etc. And that requires collaborative work of policymakers, manufacturers, and insurance companies to further design the insurance system to incorporate this fast-growing industry. And the third recommendation is the safety standards and certifications. Right now, we see a lot of safety challenges around the globe of ESS, and we see a trend of low price competition within the industry. We need to change the mindset of the end users and the industry to direct the industry focus back on innovation and value creation. So standards and certification is key. We need to have, for example, energy storage system level safety standards and protocols before connecting to the grid, and also operational and maintenance standards. That is also key. So in short, we need to have standardization that cover the whole life cycle of energy storage stations. And certification and validation is another thing to put those standards into use. Otherwise, standards is only on paper. So we need to have those standards to be implemented through certification and validation. And finally, as the newly announced 2025 steering group member for IRENA coalition, I will lead the coalition and continue to strive for bringing awareness to the energy storage industry and how that contributes to the global energy transition. And so our full report of the energy storage will coming soon. So please looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Huang. So, and for highlighting actually the services that batteries can provide actually to the power system. So, of course, the stability, this is a very quick service which is required for frequency control and so on. Underlying the capacity markets as a business model, I suppose, for the batteries, but also financing and the insurance issue. And indeed, of course, the batteries are still developing as technology is mature, but new solutions are appearing. So we should not forget about the quality standards and certifications procedures when we go forward with these huge targets. And now, from what I call the short duration flexibility solutions, I would like to move to long duration more. And I would like to invite the International Hydropower Association, the CEO, Mr. Eddie Rich, to of course, we listen. Solar is more combined maybe with batteries, but we have also wind. And we have the systems which for example, we will not have neither wind nor solar in certain winter periods, which happen in the North Hemisphere, I would say. So how the partnerships and investments in pipe hydro storage can accelerate actually the services that long duration storage can provide. So the floor is yours.
Well, thanks very much, and Norella, thanks very much to Irina. Because this is a really important debate, and wow, we've come a long way in the last year, haven't we? I mean, this time last year, we in the International Hydropower Association were certainly calling this question of flexibility of long duration energy storage the ignored crisis within the crisis. I don't think that we can say that anymore. And these discussions, these reports that are coming out, the fact that we're having this session now is very relevant. And indeed, innovation is an important part of all of the responses, but we have also proven mass scale, long duration energy storage solutions out there. And of course, pump storage is the dominant one at the moment within that, representing around 80% of the storage at the moment. So, you know, using Dr. Raoul's phrase, this really is the backbone. Pump storage is the backbone at the moment of the global energy storage. We need a whole load more, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's the only solution out there. We need research and development, but we need as much as we can get from anywhere, and let's not forget about the proven technologies. And the important thing to remember is the pump storage potential is huge. The Australian National University have done studies of greenfield off-river on the potential outside national parks, outside protected sites and populated areas, and they've identified over 600,000 sites around the world. They've also done other atlases which look at brownfield sites, you know, things like disused mines. They've looked at what they call bluefield sites, which is partially on river or off river. Together, that's over 1 million sites. If anybody wants to look at that atlas, come and find me. If you want to look at what it looks like for your country, come and find me, because there is huge potential in every one of the countries represented here. And even if only, say, 1 in 100 of those million or so potential sites is viable, then you've still got enough energy storage, long duration energy storage, to meet requirements for the world several times over. So why isn't this being done if there's so much potential out there? Well, I mean, first of all, I would say, as you've already heard around this table, there is a renaissance in pump storage going on. We've heard from China, where, you know, you've been talking about 150 gigawatts of pump storage in the pipeline. You're talking about India, where they're talking about another 35 gigawatts in the pipeline under construction already. In Australia, in the US, in Europe, we're seeing real revitalization of pump storage coming. But the key point is, and it's the same point you made for shorter duration, it's very difficult for the market alone to deliver this. The market is very good at rewarding electricity generation, and it's not so good at rewarding electricity reliability. You have to design the market to do that. We in IHA have been establishing a global alliance for pump storage. So far, there are over 35 governments and international agencies that are part of this. IRENA is part of it. Thank you very much for your support. Several of the governments represented here today are part of that. That group will look specifically at this point about what kind of market solutions are out there, what kind of government policies can enable pump storage. It will look at good practice. It will look at what materials and good guidance can be given. It will establish some targets which take that global target, which we very much welcome, and piece it together into more nuanced long duration targets more around the storage elements of it, and it will be a group that shows global leadership. So this Global Alliance Pump Storage, or GAPS for short, is a key opportunity to build on the renaissance that is going on and accelerate the speed that is going to be needed for the exponential growth that we all know is required to back up wind and solar, as you say. So please, if you are interested in joining that, please come and join, find me, and we can make that happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eddie, for actually giving this perspective of hydropower pump storage renaissance. This is good to hear, and also the quite large technical potential which exists, but also underlying the issue of the markets which and policy which need to be put in place. And without taking any commitment, I suppose that this is related also to what we should estimate in terms of flexibility needs, regionally and globally. So with that, I would move to the grids representative to MET TSO, Mr. Angelo Ferrante. Angelo, because we know each other a little bit from the past, I would like to ask you, because of course you are looking at MET TSO interactions, so Southern Europe, but also North Africa, and also into further down interconnection. From your point of view, because we discussed transmission capacities we saw in China, which are the best practices you have identified in your association for grid expansion, but also for the interconnections in order to facilitate actually the renewables integration?
Thanks, Norella. Thanks to Irene for the invitation, the opportunity to be here today. Indeed, first of all, let me say that I'm glad to hear that now everybody recognizes the importance of development of the grid. If we remember a few years ago, with the development of distributed energy resources, both with the end users and for the generation side, there was the forecast that of a reduced importance of the grid, while now everybody recognizes that without a sound development of the grid, there is no energy transition. If we want to have a power system that's still reliable, affordable, and sustainable. The TSOs are the enablers of this process because they manage the grid and they have to tackle new challenges deriving the electrification of end users and the development of renewable energy sources. Developing the grid is one of their main tasks, but that's not the only one, because if we want to keep the grid as it is now, we have to promote the integration of flexible assets and services into the grid. We have to promote the development of sound market design that facilitates the integration of renewables, and last but not least, invest in digitalization and research and development. So going to your very easy question, how to promote the development of the grid. Let's say that there are everywhere technical, financial, regulatory, and institutional barriers, but they do not play the same role in different parts of the world. There isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. Even if we focus on the Mediterranean, present an association that puts together European and non-European companies, we see completely different situations. At the European level, for instance, we have very demanding targets for the achieving the energy transition. In Italy, for instance, according to the National Energy and Climate Plan, there is the need to integrate 107 gigawatts of renewables at the year 2030, and this figure represents about 60 gigawatt more than the current renewable sources installed today, and this to reach the share of renewables of 63% in 2030. And there is an action plan to integrate these renewables in the grid that doesn't deal only with the development of the grid itself. Of course, first topic is how to achieve the technical and financial capability for infrastructure development. Terna, that's the Italian TSO, as in its industrial plan issued last year, foreseen investments for 15 billion euros, sorry, 16 billion euros in the next 5 years, mostly to develop the grid and transfer the renewables that are in a big part produced in the south of the country to the northern part of the country. But there is an important activity also in market design by identifying the right mix of those actions that are necessary to integrate future and spot markets. And flexibility tools, the TSO plays a crucial role in sizing the needed amount of flexibility tools, mostly hydro pumping power stations and batteries, and the suitable technology mix. In this perspective, in Italy, and the TSOs is responsible also for managing tenders that have been launching starting this year for auctioning long-term capacity for storage, because it has been recognized that spot markets do not provide the right signals for developing storage. And last but not least, policy and regulatory issues, because permitting is, of course, a key element for developing the grid, and without speeding up the development of the grid, it's not possible to fulfill the development plan. And the last point I would like to mention is procurement, because especially in Europe, the enormous request of components, particular kinds of components, in particular cables and substation equipments, is determining problems in the supply chain of, and this can endanger tremendously the development plans of the TSOs. Anticipatory investments. Of course, we recognize that without anticipatory investments, the grid is constantly lagging the development of renewables. Without anticipatory investments, it is not possible to with long-term policy priorities. So TSOs are more and more engaged in long-term planning studies to reduce the risk of anticipatory investment, but it is necessary to have a strong change of approach by the regulators. It is necessary also supported by the financial institutions to be less concentrated on the short-term efficiency reduction of cost for consumers, and have in their analysis of investments a wider approach, a broader approach that includes all the potential benefits of these long-term investments in the grid. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angelo, for highlighting also the TSO's perspective. Of course, in terms of national specificities, which I know it's important, regulatory systems are very national as well, but also the market planning and anticipatory investments, flexibility tools, as well as the digitalization. So with that, I think I made the round of the panel. It was quite heavy, but I'm very pleased actually with the different perspectives we got. Now we will move more towards the open part of this session, and I have 3 guiding questions, and I have already 4 registered intervenants on this side of the table. The first question would be about energy storage and grid expansion targets, which, as we could hear, it's also national specific. But in a way, we have to raise it and to make it happen globally. So, from this perspective, I would like maybe to start to hear, if it's okay for you, François Garnier, so Clean Energy Ministerial. And afterwards, I will also open the floor to the audience. Please raise your plate. I will ask my colleagues to help me because I don't see so far away. So I will, and including the table as well. So to reflect on this question, François, please, 1 or 2 minutes if possible.
Thanks for
Absolutely right. All here about how suddenly we see a lot of focus on the importance of infrastructure investments, and this is something that we've been looking for a while. In fact, this accumulated last year when we, under the Brazilian direction, both as G20 presidency, but also as hosts of CEM 15 in Foz do Iguaçu, where we launched an action agenda on power systems solutions. And basically, this brings together 8 of the work streams under the Clean Energy Ministerial to agree to 30 concrete actions to address many of the issues that have been raised here today. These actions cover 6 priority areas, all the way from for systems planning to looking at flexibility mechanisms, linking to end use issues, but also even looking at socio-economic aspects. I think I'll focus on 3 specific examples. One, in 2023, following leaders' requirements at the Climate Action Summit, the CEM launched at COP28 a battery storage initiative that was really aimed at looking at how we can unlock the opportunity for storage. And last year at COP, we these report looks at lessons learned from different jurisdictions in terms of how you can unlock that. Many of them very, very pertinent to the work here, especially, like, for example, how you integrate solar and battery storage technologies in terms of different aspects. We also have been working on creating local specific action plans for grid modernization, working notably with NREL through our 21st Century Partnership, but also in terms of grid digitalization and different aspects of that. And maybe to one of the last point that was raised, at COP29, we launched a campaign that is called Enabling Regulators for Accelerated Decarbonization. And this is really to create a policy dialogue between policymakers and regulators, so that we can take the tools that regulators have to enable proper market structures for investment plans, looking at how regulators can look at supply chain security issues and really take all of their tools and bring it as useful discussions to be supportive of decarbonization, rather than often be seeing them as a hurdle to be overcome. So these are some of the specific examples that we're working on currently, and that by allowing this, then provide feedback into the political discussions to be able to enable even more ambition in terms of the targets that we need to agree. And so we're currently working with South Africa during their G20 presidency to take some of those findings, building what we did with Brazil last year, as well with our host this year, Korea, who will be co-hosting our 16th ministerial meeting alongside the APEC Energy Ministerial at the end of August in Busan, and are still working with the Brazilian presidency to be able to build on what they've done last year into their COP30 presidency this year in Belém, so that we can make sure that these concrete examples, concrete progresses feed back into political discussions and help raise the overall ambition to be able to continue to go on and bring attention to these critical aspects. So looking very much forward to working with the Arena Coalition for Action in terms of raising that attention.
Thank you very much, Francois, for these underlines and also for the links with the international fora, so COP29, COP30, and also the Coalition for Action. And if I can move to the next on the same question, Green Grid Initiative, Marcus Stewart, the head of secretariat. If you can reflect on what you heard before.
Thank you. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today.
We very much welcome the Baku grids target. I mean, grids have been underrepresented for quite some time, and they are absolutely crucial for the move to a high renewable system, the 3 times renewables. In fact, I'd go as far as to say there's no transition without transmission. And the Green Grids Initiative, we're focusing on bringing together an ecosystem of actors to accelerate those grids and work on some of the systemic challenge areas. And I'm just going to highlight 3 areas of focus that we're working on at the moment, which we see as critical to the deployment and the acceleration of grids. First off is finance. In order to meet the tripling renewables ambition, we need to double investment in grids from 300 billion to 600 billion per annum by 2030. A lot of those investments are in emerging and developing economies, and currently their grids are not eligible for concessional finance. We published a paper at COP29 identifying a set of principles that would enable those types of projects to be eligible for that type of finance. That would then further unlock the ability to bring in private finance to those projects. We'll be talking about this tomorrow in a further session, but we see this as a key enabler to enable that tripling ambition. Alongside that, regulatory models and approaches need to be harmonized and also developed to enable secure investments in the grid. So we're doing work to share that experience where good practice and private investment is working to share that with other countries that are looking to solve that problem. The second area of focus is around planning and operation. We've heard about permitting and how long it takes to deploy the grid. It's 10 plus years of that. 8 or 9 of those is in permitting and 2 years is in building. So we need to accelerate that. So we're bringing together good practice on that to share that as well. So again, that could be deployed across a greater number of regions and locations. We're also focusing on operability experience. The tools to bring high renewables grids are out there already. They can be done. There are organisations and countries that are doing that. I come from the National Energy System Operator in the UK, and this year we're going to be able to operate the grid carbon free for certain periods. We have set up our ancillary services to enable to do that. And we are sharing that knowledge, and that's one of the capacity building elements that we are sharing through the Green Grids Initiative. We've also shared learning around how to develop interconnectors and take the learning from how the interconnectors have been developed in the North Sea. I've published a paper on principles for interconnection, again, to help accelerate the building of those grids. And the third and final area I want to highlight today is around supply chain. It's been mentioned already, but supply chain for grids in particular has been, I would say, dormant for a period of time. The focus on grids has not been built. It's been on rationalization and energy efficiency. If we are to scale up, we need to scale up the supply chain. So we're working with partners such as UNETSA and IRENA to bring a dialogue between the supply chain and government and industry to make that happen and focus on things like standardization and interoperability, but also new procurement and buying models that are going to be needed if we are going to hit the target of growth that we need to enable the energy transition. So I'd just like to invite people in the room. We're a small organisation. We're currently working in Africa and Asia Pacific. We are moving to Latin America. But, please come and contact me and find out how you can join and support and work with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcos, for underlining once again a little bit also the challenges of the grids. Of course, quite few investments. Also some takes away from planning and operation, but also the supply chain, which was mentioned by Angelo Ferrante in terms of equipment. And now I would like to move more to innovation side and technologies. Maybe this time to address storage. And I would like to invite first Long Duration Energy Storage Council, Alex Campbell.
Thank you so much. Yes, lots of really good points made already, so I'm not going to reiterate those, but I think from our perspective, so Long Duration Energy Storage Council, industry association representing a wide range of companies, startups, all the way through to some of the largest companies by stock market value on earth, all dedicated to deploying elders to support the energy transition. That's the ability to discharge energy continuously for 8 hours or more, store it for days, weeks, months, even seasons. So I think the really important point for us is we think it's critical that stakeholders assess the need for storage of all durations, building on the global 1.5 terawatt pledge that we heard earlier about. Our analysis suggests the need for LDES is huge. On the lowest cost pathway to net zero globally, it could be up to 8 terawatts. Around 5 of that would be on heat, so thermal storage, and around 3 terawatts of electricity. But the world is falling so short of that at the moment. I mean, China's doing fantastic stuff with storage hydropower. There are, of course, lots of other types of LDES, but we think we need to ramp up globally about 50 times quicker than we're deploying today. The big gap, I think Eddie actually touched on this earlier, is the lack of a proper market signals. Investors need to have that long-term revenue visibility to build these assets. They're not getting that at the moment, but there is some progress. We heard about Italy, Turner, the procurements there. Another much more market-based approach would be in the UK with a cap and floor. And of course, as we heard, China, India, US, and Australia. Countries are making progress, but not nearly quick enough. So we'd love to work with everybody in this room on how we deliver those policy frameworks, and love the leadership that Irena's showing in this space. So please do come and reach out to me if you want to talk further about this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and also for keeping the time short, 2 minutes. So maybe I will turn to my last intervenant, Jinko Solar. So Deputy Sustainable and Business Development Director, Altianan Navav. So 2 minutes shortly, if you can. And then if you want to react to anything you have heard, please raise your plate so I can also go into the room.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to address this assembly today on behalf of Jinko Solar. I'd like to introduce Jinko Solar as an innovation technology supplier. We are one of the top technology leaders in supplying N-type solar module globally. We serve over 190 countries. Energy storage integration is essentially an energy transition. However, we would like to highlight delivering energy, especially during peak demands or at night times. Last month, Saudi Arabia announced that it has successfully extracted lithium from brine sample from national giant Aramco oil field sand and plans to launch a commercial pilot program for direct extraction soon. Since lithium is a major component for energy storage manufacturing process, we need to shed a light of the impact of in terms of clean energy industry and the logistics growth. Finally, the momentum is our side. Solar plus storage is no longer the future. It's happening now, shaping a world where clean energy is just an option but a standard need. Where Jinko Solar is committed to its mission to power this transformation, bringing affordable, sustainable, and innovative solution to every corner of the world. Together, let us continue to lead the charge towards a brighter, cleaner, and more resilient energy future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much also for hearing this perspective. Sorry to say, I don't see any plate raise, but if I don't see any plate raise, then I timely move to the conclusions. So we had a quite interesting panel discussion with representatives of the member states, with representatives of research institutes, industry and utilities, but also the organizations and the companies of the coalition. And I would like to thank you for your insights. What I take on from here, it's of course we discuss about grid expansion and modernization. We have targets, but we have to take into account on one hand the use of the digital solutions, on the other hand the market perspective, the supply chains, the skills as well, and to look at flexibility by taking into account the different energy mixes and regional approaches in order to arrive to global estimations. In terms of solutions, we have seen short duration storage and long duration storage with different issues, but also as solution to enable the power system to continue to integrate more renewables. And I take here, of course, the market business models, but also the standards and quality infrastructure development. I would also like to recall that we have an international forum where we can discuss regulatory and investment needs, as well as best practices, which were underlined here by grids representatives and storage representatives. And I think with this, I will close this session. You still see here 3 minutes, but I think we are 12:30 sharp. So thank you very much for your intervention and my colleagues' support. Thank you.